We are cooking with rhubarb. It is rhubarb season, and I look forward to this season every year, as does my husband. We both love rhubarb and just about everything. So thanks for joining live today. I hope you're just outside in this gorgeous weather, and then you can watch this on the replay. But if you are joining me live, welcome. My name is Judy Matuski, and I am a registered dietitian with Atkins Nutrition, as well as a culinary nutritionist. So I'm happy to be here. I took a little bit of a break. We celebrated my son's wedding, which was absolutely beautiful. I actually thought that I would not be back live for a little bit, but my kitchen cabinets are on delay, so I'm not sure when the kitchen project is going to start. So I may be back again next week. Hopefully, that would be a lot of fun. Thanks again for joining. We're going to go right ahead and get into rhubarb. I love it. I cook with it. This time of the year, my husband loves to garden, as you might all know, and he has some amazing rhubarb plants that come back every year. So they're annuals. If you have them in your garden, they're going to grow and they're going to come back. I did a little garden tour, a little video earlier this morning, if you had a chance to see that. If not, I'll repost that and pull that back up. But just wanted to show you how rhubarb does grow in the garden. The one thing with rhubarb is it does produce these big green leaves, and these are not edible. It's the one part of the rhubarb plant that we really don't want to eat. It's not that it's like poison in there, but it's very high in oxalic acid, which is not great for the kidneys. So we want to snip this off. So basically, we're not going to use the leaves at all. Just snip them off, and we're just going to use these beautiful, brilliant red and sort of lime green. It's actually one of my favorite color. I always say when someone asks me, my favorite color is rhubarb. So we're going to use the stems to make a couple of things today. All right. So first thing going is I'm going to do a rhubarb chia seed jam, and you can actually make this jam with just about any fruit, whether you're using blueberries or strawberries or raspberries. Because we're obviously doing rhubarb, I'm using that today. I'm using rhubarb. The difference is that rhubarb is very, very tart. So it is a vegetable that you've got to pair with some sort of a sweetener. And this particular recipe will have a little bit more, or I'm using maple syrup in it than you would need if you were using a berry, because they're going to be just a lot sweeter, so you'll need a lot less sugar. All right, so I have this going. I'm going to just take it off because it's pretty much turn this down. So I do want to I have this recipe calls for 3 cups of rhubarb. So I'm just, this is straight out of the garden. I am going to just cut up a few more. I have about 2 cups in the, hey Tahini, my dog's having a little coughing fit here. I'm going to just, I don't know, it doesn't really matter how big they are. This is all going to break down and get super soft, but I'm going to cut them in maybe 1-inch little cubes, and I'm going to throw these in with the ones that I already have. There's nothing else in this skillet except the rhubarb. So the rhubarb releases a lot of liquid, so you really don't have to add any liquid to this at all. It will release some, and then we're going to want to cook it down a little bit. So this is about 3 cups. It could be 4, give or take, of the rhubarb. And now we're just going to do the zest of a lemon. This is a huge lemon. Almost looks like an Amalfi lemon from the coast of Amalfi. But they were just big in the market this week. So I'm going to use, but I am going to still use the full zest of the lemon. I just love lemon. If you were making this chia jam using like berries or a sweeter fruit, you would use a little more lemon juice than I'm going to use right now, because the rhubarb is so tart. So that's the whole zest of the lemon that I'm putting in with the rhubarb. But because the rhubarb is so tart, I'm not going to use quite as much. I think the original recipe for berries called for 1/4 cup of lemon juice. I'm only going to use about half this lemon, and it's probably just going to be a couple of tablespoons. I'm going to just use my clean hand here to squeeze the juice through so I can capture any seeds. So that was just a couple of tablespoons of lemon juice. It's a little, we don't need quite as much. Just rinse my hand. All right. So let me just stir this around, and I'll show you this. So there's just the cut rhubarb with a little lemon juice and a little lemon zest. I'm going to let this now cook. Well, actually, let's go ahead and add the sweetener. I am using maple syrup. So this calls for about half a cup of maple syrup. You could use brown sugar, you could use regular sugar. Whatever sweetener is your preference. I just like the flavor of maple syrup in things, so I'm going to use that. Like I said, if you were using 3 cups of berries instead of the maple syrup, you would only need about 1/4 cup of the maple syrup. But again, rhubarb is pretty tart, so you need just a little bit more sweetener. All right, I'm going to just turn this up a little bit because we want this now to sort of cook down, and we just want the rhubarb to break down. So it goes from being, you know, pretty firm, but as it's on the heat, it doesn't take long, maybe 5 minutes, and it'll start to soften and it kind of breaks down and it sort of just, you know, it gets super, super soft in the liquid. All right, so we're gonna let this go, and then at the end we're gonna add the chia seeds, and I'll show you the final version of this when, just in a little bit. All right, so we have the chia seed jam going, and now the next thing that I want to do is we're going to do the rhubarb cobbler. Now there is so many different things that you can do with rhubarb. I make muffins, I do a rhubarb snacking cake, I will put it in oatmeal, I make the different sauces with it or chutneys. This at pie, particularly, a friend of ours, Miles, shout out to you, was requesting that I do a strawberry rhubarb pie, which I do. Maybe I'll even do that on another video. But that I'm choosing the cobbler today just because it's so easy and so fast. So in this bowl, I already have. It's just a cup of flour. If you have whole wheat pastry flour, you could use that. I didn't have that, so I am just using all-purpose flour. There's about 3/4 cup of brown sugar. It just depends on how much rhubarb you really want to use in this cobbler. Sometimes I'll use 6 to 8 cups. Sometimes I'll use more like 4 to 6, depending on how much I have. And then I just adjust the sweetness to it. If I'm using a lot of rhubarb, closer to 6 to 8 cups, I'll probably use more like a cup of brown sugar. This is about 6 cups of rhubarb, so I'm going to use about 3/4 cup of brown sugar. All right, so in here we have the brown sugar, we just have flour, we have salt, and a little baking powder. Now our whole grain flour is going to come from using stone ground cornmeal. So that is an addition that gives it a nice little texture and just a little crunch and texture, which I love in this cobbler. So we're using 1/2 cup of this stone ground cornmeal. Let me just stir that in. All right, let me just turn this down a little bit. We got this boiling away, and I'm going to give it a little stir. It is going to thicken here a little bit, even on its own, because rhubarb, when it does break down, it does tend to try to kind of thicken up whatever sauce you're making. So I'm going to let this continue, and it does release. You can see, look at how much liquid that released. I mean, we added a little bit of lemon juice, but not much. That's just really coming from the rhubarb. So we'll let this continue to boil away. All right, so we added the cornmeal to our flour mixture here and brown sugar. And before I add the liquid ingredients, what I want to do is I want to show you how we're going to start the cobbler. So you're going to take a 13 by 9 inch baking pan, and I just sprayed it with a little cooking spray. This is about 6 cups of pre-cut rhubarb. That's going to go in, but the first thing we need to do is I have right here, this is just 2 tablespoons of melted butter, and that's really all the fat that you're going to need in this entire dessert. So just not because I modified it to make it low fat, it just happens to be a relatively lower fat dessert, but still absolutely delicious. So this is the 2 tablespoons of butter, and then we're going to add a 1/4 to 1/3 cup of brown sugar to the butter, and this is just going to give the rhubarb is going to go on top of this, and it's just going to give this a nice little crust, like a little, brown sugar crust at the bottom. So just mix it around. So we're just mixing up that little bit of butter that we added with the brown sugar, and then we're just we just want this to be, we want to spread this just on the bottom of the pan, okay? Spread it out fairly evenly. All right, so that's going to be the base. Now we're going to take our rhubarb, and that's just going to go right on top. So again, this is about 6 cups, just nothing added to the rhubarb. Just goes right on top. We don't have to do anything. Now, you could pre-cook this rhubarb almost like what we're doing right here. You could pre-cook this down to like a little bit of a sauce and then pour it in. The difference would be that this is a lot easier and a lot faster. It just saves you a step, and it's absolutely delicious this way. It will release some of its moisture while you're baking. I'm going to move this off, keep it really boiling, even though I turned it down. It will release some of its liquid. So when you bake this up, it is a nice cakey kind of rhubarb cobbler. But once it sits for a while, it's going to get a little bit wetter. So by the next day, it's still absolutely delicious, but it's definitely a wetter cobbler. If you pre-cook the rhubarb and then put the rhubarb in the bottom of your pan, your cobbler wouldn't get quite as wet. So it's just kind of up to you. I honestly don't really care if it gets a little bit wet. It still tastes fantastic. So I just do it this way, a lot easier, a lot faster. All right, so we just have a little bit of butter, brown sugar, a little brown sugar, and the rhubarb. Now let's finish up our the batter that's going to go on top of our cobbler, and that's where I have this flour, cornmeal, brown sugar kind of mixture. Now we're just going to add our liquid ingredients, and it's going to be 3 eggs, and I'm just going to pour this right into the center. Half a cup of milk, and it's your milk of choice. I'm just using almond, like a unsweetened vanilla almond milk. I had more of that than regular milk in my refrigerator, so that's why I picked it. And then it's about a teaspoon of vanilla. All right, so that's just going to go in. And now we're just going to stir this around. And this is our batter. So you can see the batter is just so easy and it comes together so quickly. So we'll give this a little bit of stir. Now when it comes to rhubarb is a vegetable, a very tart one. And it does, but it does bring with it some pretty interesting nutritional value. So rhubarb is really high in that plant compound called anthocyanins, which gives this rhubarb its beautiful ruby kind of red color. And it's that type of a flavonoid is also found in berries, blueberries, raspberries, strawberries. And so we get this nice antioxidant value from the rhubarb. And not only that, but it's a good source of vitamin K. It's a great source of vitamin C. It's actually pretty high in a mineral called manganese, which is something that's not always that easy to get. So that's kind of a nice little benefit. Now it is a little on the higher side with oxalic acid, not nearly like the amount that you'll find in leaves. But so for that reason, if you tend to develop kidney stones, rhubarb is just one of those things that we just say, be moderate with. But for the rest of us, it's perfectly fine. And like I said, my husband and I eat it all the time in so many different ways this time of year. All right, so now we're just going to take the rhubarb and we're going to cover it with this, and it really is very liquid, this batter, as you can see. Pouring it right on top. So I'm just going to scrape it right out of this bowl. All right. And that's the little batter that goes on top of the rhubarb. I'm just going to spread it around just so it kind of evenly covers. It doesn't look like it's going to be enough batter to cover all this rhubarb, but it really does puff up. So when you're baking this in the oven, the whole thing puffs up and it really becomes this really nice cake with the rhubarb studded kind of throughout it. So I'm going to go ahead now and just pop this in the oven. This takes about 30 to 40 minutes to cook. I did have one that I made over the weekend, but because it's my husband's absolute favorite dessert, I don't have any to show you right now. So I won't be able to show you the finished cobbler, before we close out. But if you go to the recipe, we have a great picture of it, so you'll see what it looks like. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pop this in. It's a 350 oven. Like I said, it's going to take probably 30 to 40 minutes. I think I'll just set the timer for 35. You can just check it, just kind of tap the top of it. It feels like it's, springing back a little bit. You'll know that it's done. All right, so let's go ahead and finish up our jam. So this, if you can see, has really thickened, right? And I haven't added the chia seeds yet. So it softens, the rhubarb really breaks down. So you can kind of see that the rhubarb is broken down. So I'm gonna bring this back over, and you can add cinnamon to this. I actually have cinnamon sitting here. I don't always add it. Sometimes I do. I just kind of forgot to put it in, so I'll leave that off to the side. Now I have 1/4 cup of chia seeds. I get the big bag from Costco because I use them in so many different things. The chia seeds are going to swell up with a little bit of extra liquid that's left in the chia with the rhubarb, and that's what's really going to thicken this all together. So I'm going to let this go. So you add the chia seeds. You're just going to cook this for another minute or so, and then it's really ready to sit. So you can kind of sit it aside, bring it to room temperature, and then put it into a jar and then pop it in your refrigerator. And you can have it in the fridge for 2 to 3 weeks easily. You can freeze it. It freezes really well. So if you're going to freeze it at least 2 to 3 months probably. So it depends on if you wanted to make a big batch. Now I'm using black chia seeds. You could use the white ones or the yellow or the lighter colored chia seeds. They look, when you first put them in, it doesn't actually look that appetizing, but the chia seeds actually they change their color, they lighten up a little bit as it sits. I'm gonna sit this off because this is really done. I'm just gonna now let that cool. Let me just show you the one that I did over the weekend. So this is the chia seed jam that I put in a jar. And let me just show you how thick it is. Let me just grab a fork. So you can see that it doesn't, those dark black chia seeds are no longer black. They almost look like they're kind of like a light brown. And here's the thickness of the jam. Isn't it absolutely gorgeous? Now you can use this on oatmeal, you can use it on your yogurt, you can use it on your pancakes, you can spread it on some toast, you can just put it over angel food cake. It's so good on so many things. And you're getting like this incredible nutritional benefit from having the chia seeds in there, right? There's all this extra fiber. So this is a really great little trick, and you can do the same, like I said, the same thing with berries, just a little less sweetener, and you can just make a real quick little jam, and super healthy because you're using all the fresh produce in season. The other real quick thing that I just wanted to mention is, if you have any kids around and you have some stalks of rhubarb, this has been something that when I was a kid, I remember doing this in my father's garden, and my husband the same, is you just take a little dish of sugar, and you take the rhubarb stalk and you just dip it into the sugar. And right now my rhubarb's really dry, but if it was, usually your rhubarb's a little damp and the sugar sticks to it. Or you can just because there's this little ridge in the rhubarb, you can just let the sugar just stick inside of the rhubarb, and then you take a bite of it. And I would bite it right now, but I'm not gonna do it on camera. But then it's so good. It's like nature's Sour Patch Kids. And our neighborhood kids come over to our garden all the time to pick rhubarb so that they can do this, so that they can dip it in sugar. It's really great. And kids, believe me, kids really love it. It's because they love that really tartness from the rhubarb, but then it's, complemented with the sugar, which is very similar to kids, Sour Patch Kids or any of those, sweet and sour candies. All right, so we've got a couple ideas for rhubarb. I will be posting lots of rhubarb recipes as I make different things. Like I said, I did a really good snacking cake the other day, which was great. And it was just, again, it did have some cornmeal in it as well, so it was a little bit, whole grain snacking cake, but with a very light sweetness. So it wasn't an overly sweet cake, which I tend to really like, but a little bit of that tang from the rhubarb. If you are finding that you're moving into the summer and that you are struggling with any kind of nutritional issues, whether you found out your cholesterol is elevated or your blood pressure is a little bit too high, or you're just trying to kind of reach maybe a little bit of a healthier weight that you can feel a little bit better at. Remember, our dietitians are available. We do all virtual sessions, so it's super convenient. You can be talking to our dietitians in the park. You can be talking to our dietitians when you're taking a walk. So there's great ways to access and super convenient for you. So just pop over to athensnutrition.com if you could use some extra support. All right, thanks for joining. Keep an eye out for all these great rhubarb recipes that we'll be posting. And if you didn't have a chance, please check out the garden walk that I did earlier, and I put that up on Facebook so you can see how rhubarb actually grows in the garden if you have that interest. All right, enjoy this day, get outside, it's absolutely beautiful. Bye-bye.